somewhere in your chart and in your life, there is a placement that can allow you to draw things to you with magnetic charisma, a deep intensity, and a mysterious allure. These things could be to do with great wealth, even great power, the ability to manipulate and control and manifest situations according to deep desires that you have within you. This placement is wherever you have Pluto in your natal chart. In astrology, Pluto is the planet of power, deep underlying power. It is active this week. It is turning retrograde. Pluto is in your natal chart, and then Pluto is moving around your life as well as it goes through the signs, as it has done ever since you were born. And right now it is in the sign of Aquarius. This week it's turning retrograde, and we're going to be looking over the next 5 months at our inner power. We're going to be looking inwards at how we use power, how we control situations, what we deeply desire, and what we deeply fear. The upside of Pluto is the ability to attract amazing wealth, fame, powerful outcomes, and the downside is that where it goes, it can often destroy in a slow but very profound way, bring things tumbling down that are untruthful, bring things tumbling down that are actually corrupt, and help us to see the true self that we are underneath without the need for false structures or unnecessary contrivance. So, go Pluto. Hello everybody, my name is Fiona of Sun and Moon Calendar. In this video I'm going to talk about the transits of the week beginning the 4th of May. This video is going to come out a little bit late. It is going to come out probably on the 4th of May, and then at the end of the week we've got Pluto turning retrograde, and I'm going to do an all signs breakdown about that transit that's happening. I am based in New Zealand, but this astrology is for the whole world. So greetings to you wherever you're from. Kia ora if you're from New Zealand, and hello also to Australia and any Southern Hemisphere people. But like I said, if you're from the Northern Hemisphere, this astrology is for the whole world, because all of these transits and aspects that I talk about, they are happening to all of us. Okay, so I make calendars like this one. This one's for New Zealand or Aotearoa, and this one up here is for Australia. They use local birds and animals, and they're set out in lunar months, and they are on special now because we are partway through the year. So you can go to Sun and Moon Calendar if you're from Australia or New Zealand and you'd like to order one. Anyway, let's get into it. I'm going to talk about the transits of the week after doing an overview of the week's energy, and then we will get into the Pluto retrograde. So starting with an overview of the week, this is a week of some challenge and stress. We have 3 squares happening this week. We've got Mercury square to Pluto, we've got Mars square to Jupiter, and we've got the quarter moon with the sun and the moon square to each other. So squares bring tension and challenge, and something that you need to push through in order to get to the other side. As well as that, we've got Pluto turning retrograde, and that might be requiring us to look inward at some of our more challenging underlying fears and motivations. But that is a slower one going over the next 5 months. So here you can see a calendar page it's from the Australian calendar, and you can see the lunar month there. And just taking the grid part of that, we are in the week beginning the 4th of May. So we're around about 3/4 of the way through the lunar month. We had the full moon last week, and now the moon is waning. And with those squares that we've got this week, and then finishing with the quarter moon, and we'll just show you there. So the last quarter moon is happening at the end of the week. All of that is going to really drive us to want to push through and get on with things, and there will be challenges, but we will feel quite driven and energized by those squares. So that's kind of convenient. So I'm going to quickly go through each of these. Mars square Jupiter on the 4th or the 5th, depending where you are in the world. Mercury square Pluto on the 5th or the 6th. Pluto stations retrograde on the 6th or 7th, and the last quarter moon on Sunday the 9th or 10th. Okay, looking first at Mars square to Jupiter. Lots of energy with this one and the desire for action. Mars is very much about initiation and go-getting and driving forward with a lot of energy, passion, and willingness to fight at times. And Jupiter can expand that. Jupiter is the energy of expansion, of opportunity, also boldness, confidence, and optimism. And Jupiter can bring along luck. So a square aspect is challenging, but Jupiter is a benefic. It has a protective quality, so that will help with this. So what I've said in the calendar there is energetic action. Fight a good fight, avoid going too far. Things might get feisty and heated up with this. Jupiter, however, might help us remember to be righteous, to remember ethical principles. So good luck with that. Like I said, not necessarily easy, and there might be a lot of tension in the air. And then we have Mercury square to Pluto. So this is a transit, an aspect that's going to be playing into some of that Pluto turning retrograde. Mercury is about our communication and our thinking, our networking with each other, connections with each other, and learning. And so it might mean with Pluto in there that we have power dynamics in our conversations and with how people are talking with each other. So be aware of that. And also because Mercury is about analysis and sometimes research and thinking, avoid going down rabbit holes or getting overly obsessive about trying to find one single fact that is eluding you and scrolling for hours trying to find this, or searching too much for something. Maybe let something go. So the middle of the week is quite tense, but it will only last for a few days and then we're moving on. And then we have Pluto stationing retrograde, and that is the main topic of this video. And so you can jump ahead to later where I go into depth about this, and also you can jump ahead to your sign so you can hear how that is going to be affecting you in what part of your life over the next 5 months. Okay, so that will be at 5 degrees 30 minutes of Aquarius that Pluto turns retrograde, and that's on Wednesday the 6th or Thursday the 7th of May. And then finally, not many transits this week. We've got the last quarter moon where the moon is square to the sun on Saturday the 9th or Sunday the 10th. So it will look like a half circle in the sky. This is another square aspect that will make us feel a bit tense and challenged and make us want to drive into getting things done and completing things on our to-do list, especially things that we started up at the new moon in Aries, which was 3 weeks or so ago by this time. So that's it for this week's transits, not so many this week. Looking ahead, on the 16th or 17th of May, there is the new moon in Taurus, and then 2 weeks afterwards, at the end of May, a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. And then I've listed 3 there, all around the same couple of days. So the 19th or 20th of June, Chiron moves into Taurus. That's a big moment. Uranus is square to the lunar nodes. And the very next day, it is the solstice, the summer solstice if you're in the northern hemisphere, and the winter solstice for us here in the southern hemisphere. So now let's look at Pluto, this planet of transformation. It's turning retrograde on the 6th or 7th of May, depending on where you are in the world. But the exact date and time isn't too important because it's a very, very slow moment. It's basically all the couple of weeks leading up to this moment and the couple of weeks after it. Pluto is stationed in one point. It's so slow that when it gets to that turning point, it just really is actually stationary for a while before it starts noticeably moving back. And of course, when I say noticeably, we have to remember it is an outer planet. We cannot see it. And the fact that these outer planets, Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, can't be seen It shows that they reflect these deeper hidden aspects of our nature and of our lives. Okay, so it will be retrograding from 5.5 minutes, 5.5 degrees of Aquarius back to 3 degrees of Aquarius. If you have any planets or points there, these will be having an extra activation with the retrograde period. While it's retrograde, it's slower than normal. Okay, so this is what I said about it in the planet. Internal exploration of deep wealth, power, sexuality, and psychology, and it's until October. Okay, Pluto is the modern ruler of the sign of Scorpio, and Scorpio really does have some of those qualities of Pluto with the hidden layers of power, the esoteric or occult things, which is all about the underlying hidden meanings and layers, underlying motivations, deep research, transformation, and mysteries. Okay, and you can liken Scorpio to deep, still water. I talked about Scorpio a lot in the last video because we've just had the full moon in Scorpio. Okay, and here are some dates. So Pluto's orbit, it's elliptical. It doesn't go in a very even circle. It's more of an oval. So it spends longer in some signs than in others, as you could see if you want to quickly do some calculations in your head with those dates. Pluto was discovered with the telescopes and all that, becoming more and more powerful in the 1930s. Here you can see the dates that Pluto has been in the signs ever since the 1930s or late 1930s with Pluto in Leo. Whoever was born in these decades that Pluto was in a certain sign take on some of the characteristics of this sign and the transformations and the fears and the motivations that have gone along with that. A couple of years ago, I did a video about the Pluto generations in New Zealand, so I will link that in the description below. But there's lots of information out there about the Pluto generations and how each generation takes on some of these fears and motivations and transformative powerful changes that have happened. We've recently come out of having Pluto in the sign of Capricorn, and that was bringing about changes to the power structures and governance, and we're seeing that all around now, the outcomes of that. One of the really significant times of Pluto in the sign of Capricorn was when Saturn came into conjunction with Pluto in Capricorn in the late degrees of Capricorn, and that's when we had the COVID pandemic and all sorts of things happening with governance and rebellion also, and the familiar structures very much changing. And now Pluto is in Aquarius, and it will be there until 2044, just recently moved in. And we are seeing changes coming about in terms of far more intensity and developments of technology. And that could also come crumbling down in some ways. For example, there's a lot more people who are aware of the great power of big tech as well as the other big industries, big pharma, big food, big ag, all of that. And Aquarius likes to have equal power. That's an Aquarian thing, egalitarianism. And I think that Pluto is going to be crumbling some of these structures. They're definitely making us want to rebel against some of these kind of big big structural ways that society is organized. Okay, but I won't go too much into that now. Let's talk instead about what Pluto can mean for you in your personal life. Pluto, one of the words that we could say for Pluto, that it is the transformer. It transforms in a very fundamental way. It is about deep truth, power dynamics, often hidden. It is about that story between the perpetrator and the victim. It can be about repression and control and rebelling against that. It is intense. It can be obsessive. It can bring about great wealth, even great fame and renown, crisis, destruction. It's also, through all the crisis and the destruction, transformative. and alchemizing, okay? And it purifies things, and it's a death and rebirth thing, okay? So some of the metaphors that are commonly used for Pluto are the phoenix dying and then rising from the ashes, a butterfly emerging from a chrysalis, the transformation from caterpillar to butterfly. It's a kind of unbelievable. It's hard to believe that the level of that transformation. I often think of it as like if you've got some really dirty clothes and you have to scrub them and scrub them to try and get them clean, and at the end they're kind of a bit roughed up and raw, uh, but clean and purified in some way. Compost. Pluto is about purging, and compost is a good example because you can completely transform the waste, the food scraps, into soil that can then sustain new life. Okay, so those are the kinds of things we can talk about with Pluto. Let's talk about what it is to go through a Pluto transit. First of all, a Pluto transit might be when a planet or a point is activating where Pluto is placed in your chart, or when transiting Pluto is going past an important point or planet in your chart. If, for example, if Pluto is going over your Venus or your ascendant point or your MC, which is about your career, any planet or point in your chart when transiting Pluto comes around, okay? Or when there's another planet, especially a slow-moving planet like Uranus, Neptune, or Saturn going over Pluto, okay, or aspecting Pluto, or Pluto itself aspecting your natal placement, okay, whatever it is. This is the nature of a Pluto transit. Slow but profound change that is painful. Loss or destruction of a power base or of structures that you believed you needed to give you power. You find out you don't need them, but that is not easy to do that finding. Deep fears can be realized, like the things that you're fearful of can actually come to pass, and you need to face them. Hidden obsessions and desires can surface. We can be very fixated and obsessive with Pluto. Power struggles, jealousy, frustration, the tendency to be manipulative and over-controlling. Awareness of controlling and or victim behavior. This is very much a thing. Who is the perpetrator? Who is the victim? We can be, as a victim, we can be quite controlling within that role of victim, and of course as a perpetrator. Our shadow side surfaces, so things come out that are not pretty, like the jealousy and the manipulative behaviors. Okay, this is our ugly side of being a human, and ideally we, through the Pluto transit, one of the parts of the journey is learning to accept that we have these ugly parts of ourselves, these unpleasant parts of ourselves that are born out of fear or deep desire. Okay, it's all part of being human. We've been put in these bodies and we are existing on this planet where there are limited resources and there's limited time, and it can make us underneath have these survival instincts that can make us behave in these ways. Okay, so what can help during a Pluto transit? Self-reflection, whatever that is for you, whether that is journaling, talking to somebody and analyzing your feelings, whether it is going for a long walk and talking to yourself through things, naming the feelings, naming the behaviors, and then naming the feelings that are motivating those behaviors, facing up to those. Like I said, they may not be pretty at all. You may need to accept that you're not such a good person as you thought you were. I mean, this is me as well. This is all of us. Accepting our darker side. It is part of what it is to be human. Seeking help, for example, self-help information, podcasts, books, counseling, and for me, astrology has been so helpful, and maybe for many of you as well. and coming back to your own power, because underneath the loss of power or feelings of loss of power is recognizing that there is our own power. After the transit, you might feel wrung out and raw, but wiser and stronger because of it. You might feel kind of purified, like you've been scrubbed clean, like your skin is almost like grazed with the cleaning, but on the inside. and out of that you heal that. You heal the wound of that pain that you went through with the loss, and then recognize and accept the limits of your control, the need to surrender, the deep truth, the underlying reality of a situation, and you can gain power and inner strength. Okay, all right. So just going back to this one. Loss and destruction of a power base. So this could be something that happens to you from the outer world, and then it brings up all these deep fears and challenges and these challenging behaviors. So the problem, the crisis can come from the outside world, but it affects you very deeply inside you. Here are some lines that I thought one might say at the end of a Pluto transit when you've made it through and you've come out the other side. They don't love me or accept me, but that's okay. My home or my job or my community or anything isn't permanent, but that's okay. I am enough and I can survive. So stronger and wiser, not so much starry-eyed about the world, but stronger and wiser. So we are about to have Pluto retrograde until October, and that means that some of our slow but sure search for the underlying truth of things and the slow crumbling of false structures and unnecessary contrivances become an internal journey. So there's an internal transformation going on, and we might not even realize that anything's going on because it is so slow. But then we could get to October or November or December and we can start seeing, oh, okay, I have changed with this. I now see this is the way things are, and I have come to an acceptance of it, even though it was hard. This could be an example. And then when Pluto turns direct in October and then following, that internal work can be applied to the outside world. That inner knowing, that inner strength, the inner transformation, that quiet transformation that could have taken place, you can apply it to the outside world and go forward with more assuredness and more self-awareness and more inner strength. So now I'm going to talk about Pluto's retrograde in Aquarius and go through each sign so that you know what area of life this will be affecting you in. And Pluto in that sign and in that part of your life where it will be about you perhaps needing to go through some transformative and challenging crisis-like situations and to come out the other side. And through that, understanding the nature of power, recognizing what's going on with the power dynamics around you, whether in larger situations with the whole world, but also very much in your personal life, and understand that underneath you have enough power. Okay, so we're going to start from the sign of Aquarius. Well, Aquarius, you have Pluto in your first house, and it's going to be in your first house until the early 2040s. So it's a big deal. It's a big chunk of your life, perhaps quarter or a fifth of your life. And Pluto is going to be going retrograde every year during that 20 years. So this started 2023, 2024 with Pluto going through your sign. At some stage, Pluto is going to be going it's going to be going over the point of your ascendant or your sun or your moon or any other planets or points that you have in this sign of yours, Aquarius. All right. And when that happens, that is going to be a hugely transformative time. Okay, who knows how it will play out, but it will certainly be to do with your personal identity in the world, the part that you play in the world, how the world sees you and knows you, and the place that you take, that space that you fill up in the world, and how you present yourself to the world. Very transformative. It could be, especially if it's your ascendant, that it's going to go over at some stage, a complete transformation to your appearance, to your body. Okay, it could be a complete transformation to the part that you play in the world. Like, you might have been a little mouse all your life, very quiet, withdrawn, and you might come out and become the opposite, absolutely an extrovert, chatty, and out there in the world. The challenge of Pluto is that it does bring crises into our lives. It would only be a crisis, like something very dramatic and on a large scale change that could make us change to the extent that Pluto requires us to change. And letting go of old structures and old beliefs we had about ourselves, old beliefs about that part and that character that we played in the world. Because this is your first house, especially if you're Aquarius rising, this could play out in any part of your life and be bringing in other parts of your life, like relationships, like family. Could find some skeletons in the closet, homeland, neighborhoods, career, work, anything like that. So, Aquarius, I wish you all the best. Some of you will have already gone through some really transformative times if your sun or moon or rising point was at 1 or 2 degrees of Aquarius. If your sun, moon, or rising point are between 3 and 5 degrees or 5.5 degrees of Aquarius, this is going to be very much affecting you for a couple of years, actually. It's a long, slow, and difficult transit, but you will come out with more personal power, much greater wisdom, more understanding of how you can take your place in the world in a more strong, self assured, self actualized, and a way where you can be authoritative and know who you are and take charge of your life. So, over the next 5 months, while Pluto is retrograde, you will be exploring all of these themes, but that exploration will be on an internal level. You might not even realize that you're going through this slow but sure transformation to some kind of understanding about your hidden power, your underlying fears, underlying motivations happening on an internal level. So all the best for that, Aquarius, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Pisces, sun, moon, or rising, but especially Pisces rising, on the 6th or 7th of May, at the end of this week, until mid-October, Pluto is going to be retrograde in your 12th house, Pisces. I am a Pisces rising and a Pisces moon, so this is me as well. So Pluto moved into this 12th house of ours 2 years ago, and it's going to be there until 2044. So that's bringing an added focus to the 12th house. And the 12th house is about any place in our life or area of life that is kind of hidden from the rest of the world. It's a house of our self undoing, it's a house of endings, and some would say it's a house also of sorrows or afflictions like illnesses. All right. The 12th house is the hidden house from the world. It follows on from the 10th house and the 11th house, which are about career and public reputation and our connections with groups out in the world. And then you get to the 12th house, and it's about where we separate from earth in some ways. We separate from our earthly body in some ways. Okay, so that can be with connection to the spirit realm, connection to the collective unconscious, or the collective consciousness, actually, I would say. And with that, the 12th house can be very spiritual. And with that, there can be these connections. You can be very creative with the 12th house in a very dreamy, mystical kind of way. And then If you're not so much thinking about the spiritual or energetic side, and in terms of what might manifest more in our earthly existence, is that the 12th house, and with Pluto going through the 12th house, is this extra focus on places and areas where we're away from normal life, we're outside of the main world. And that could be it could be connections to foreign places that are far away, distant, separate from normal life. It could be a connection to a workplace that's sort of a little bit tucked away and out of the main humdrum of life, not very well known perhaps. It could be like doing a night shift, or it could be like working from home and people aren't really seeing you. The 12th house can also be about connections or activities that are taking place in resorts or retreats or care homes or rest homes or hospitals or even prisons, out of the way places. The 12th house can also be about how we like to escape from the world. And that can include, just going and flopping on the couch and watching some dumb shows. It can also include like addictive behaviors where we're trying to escape through comfort eating or working too hard or substances, any kind of stuff like that. Okay, so the 12th house, and it can also be like the separation from the world that comes with the 12th house, can also be through an illness. All right, so Pluto moved into our 12th house 2023, 2024. Since then, for me, that has shown up as more connections with foreign places, and it's because my partner comes from another country and I've gone and visited his place and I went traveling last year with him. It took me away from normal life. I've also had much more to do with care homes since Pluto moved into Aquarius, our 12th house, because my dad is now in a care home. So I'm having more connections with that kind of out of the way place. So Pluto comes in and it adds extra focus. It can bring wealth, like there's this opportunity to alchemize what is ordinary into gold. So wealth or fame or the realization of ambitions. So whatever that is for you in the 12th house, this is possible in the next 20 years. The challenges that Pluto brings are one, power dynamics. So power dynamics in any of those areas, power dynamics where maybe you realize that others are trying to manipulate you, and you need to take back your power and stand in your own authority and maybe speak up for yourself. And some of this could be through quite challenging painful processes that you realize this. And then the other way that Pluto can be very challenging is where it brings some destruction. It brings endings that are painful, like something that is a familiar structure that you almost might feel is holding you up in some way, becomes destroyed. Okay, I don't even want to predict what that might be for me because it just sounds too upsetting to think about. But that is what happens. And then Pluto, we can feel like we're wrung inside out, but we go through that painful process of the ending. And then we realize that what is left behind is us, our true self, reality, and we accept that, and we're wiser and more able to stand in our own power because of it. Okay, so all the best for that. Oh, yes, so I should say, over the next 5 months, while Pluto is retrograde, we're going to be going through a more internal process of exploring our inner power and our power dynamics in any of those 12th house areas. And we're integrating what we might have learned over the last few months. So it'll be even on a subconscious level that this is going on. But at the end of that 5 months, like end of October, November, December, we'll be able to apply what we've learned in the real world, in the earthly existence, in any of those 12th house areas, and move forward with that. So all the best for that, Pisces, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Aries, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Aries rising, From early May, 6th or 7th of May, until mid-October, Pluto will be retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius for you, Aries, is your 11th house, and you have just headed into 20 years of Pluto in your 11th house. The 11th house is about friendship groups, organizations that you belong to, and the networks that are part of those organizations, as in networks of people. It's about community. It's about high tech and innovation and grand solutions that are very ingenious that can solve problems for humanity. The 11th house can be kind of quirky and rebelling against convention. And Pluto is going through that 11th house between now and 2044, and it is slowly but surely bringing added intensity and focus to any of those areas that I mentioned, but also crumbling some of the false structures that can exist in any of those areas. I can give you the example of myself because over the last 20 years before, or 14 years or so, before Pluto went into Aquarius, it was in Capricorn, and that is my 11th house. And during that time, I developed lots of connections with groups of people. I led groups. I was like thinking about new ways of doing this and that. I was quite innovative at times, and I led groups doing different things. One of these areas was dance, because I do a lot of dance, but there were other things as well that I was doing. I got an idea and I thought, oh, I've got to get a group together and we do this. It's a great way to help people for such and such and this and that. And I became a leader in some of these things. And then towards the end of the transit, it was enough. Like I started letting go of a lot of this. Okay. And then much later in the transit, I had a job that was in a large organization. I really valued my connections with the network of people that worked in that organization, and I was made redundant. And that was as transformative, like the tower in the tarot tumbling down, this structure that I thought was solid and stable and maybe forever came crumbling down, and it was all gone. It wasn't easy. You can feel like your soul is being bared, but then on the other side of it, you realize you've still got yourself, you've still got who you are, you've still got the skills and knowledge and all that you have within, and that is enough. It's actually enough, and you can start again. And after Pluto moves out of this 20 years later, after 2044, you might not be as interested in those kinds of things anyway, because you've got an extra intensity around groups of people and friendship groups and all that during this time. Okay, so while Pluto is retrograde over the next 5 months, you're exploring all of these things and the nature of power and power dynamics within groups of people, the nature of power and power dynamics within technology and technological solutions. You're exploring all of that, but it's on an internal level. So you might find that you're not into initiating new things quite as much during this time. You might just hold back for a little bit. Or if you do initiate, it might not feel so much like you're breaking into new ground. It might be something a little more familiar. You're initiating a whole lot anyway at the moment, Aries, because there's so much energy in your sign at the moment, because you've also got at the moment for the next while Neptune and Saturn there, and you've had all the personal planets that move more quickly, but they've been in your sign. So there's lots of new beginnings for you at the moment, Aries, very profound new beginnings. Over the next 5 months, there's going to be a little bit of exploring of your own personal power within groups of people and within those technological solutions and those ideas and innovations. So go well with that, Aries, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Taurus Rising, from the 6th or 7th of May until mid-October this year, Pluto is going retrograde in your 10th house of career. So Taurus, Pluto moved into your 10th house of career 2023 or 2024. So it's been there for a couple of years now. And over the next 20 years until 2044, it is going to be transforming that house, transforming your career. You're going to learn, by the end of that, you'll realize you have learned so much about the nature of power in terms of the career. Or if you don't have a paid career, or you're like, I've got plenty of friends who they've got a paid job, but then they're doing other work in the community that they're known for. There's public renown, they're publicly recognized. For example, performance or leading committees or doing volunteer work. They're doing some leadership roles there, for example. Anything where you're publicly recognized for something. This is all to do with your 10th house. It can even be to do with the legacy that you want to leave behind when you go, where you're making a difference in the world. That can all be to do with the 10th house. Pluto is going to slowly but surely transform this house of your career. Okay, and it'll do that in two ways. It'll do that by bringing some crises that make you question what's going on, like power dynamics, like what's going on underneath here. And it could be that you become a victim of others' manipulation, and there could be a journey towards recognizing what's going on there and thinking, okay, they are actually, they're talking in one way, but you know that they're actually trying to manipulate in a hidden way. You might get much better at recognizing this kind of thing. Okay. And it also could be the other way that Pluto can play out is where you recognize your own power and you realize where you are giving away your power and perhaps just going along with things just naively. You get a lot less naive with Pluto. Okay, so that's not so much a crisis, but it's growing in your recognition of how power plays out. But sometimes Pluto can come along and bring a crisis, like you lose your career for some reason. Something happens to destroy that structure that you thought was stable and forever, and then that changes, it's gone, and you're left, and you might feel like an empty shell, even, like, because you might have realized you had an attachment, like it was part of your identity, this career or this role that you were playing, where you were this public role. And when it goes, that can feel very shocking and disempowering. And what Pluto requires you to do is to go through that and suffer the pain of the letting go of that attachment to that thing that was there, that structure that was there, and realize that underneath, behind that, you are still you, you are still powerful, you still have what you need to offer to the world, and maybe what you need to offer to the world might be something different. With that destruction of an old structure, there could be space for you to realize, oh no, actually, it wasn't really aligned with me that well after all. It didn't align with my values. It wasn't really making a difference. It leaves the space to step into something else with more understanding of who you are and how power works and how power works for yourself. Okay, so all the best for that, Taurus, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Gemini, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Gemini Rising, at the end of this week, 6th or 7th of May, until mid-October, Pluto will be turning retrograde. Okay, so Pluto is going through your 9th house, Gemini, which is generally an easier house for something like this to be happening in. The 9th house is about your philosophical beliefs, it's about your spiritual belief systems, whether that is a religion or a book of teachings that you follow, or do you follow a guru and their set of religious principles or spiritual principles? The 9th house is also about travel and going off to foreign places or connections with foreign cultures, especially where they're bringing ideas and beliefs that help you understand the world and broaden your horizons. And the 9th house is also about higher education, so like university learning, perhaps doing a course where it is again broadening your horizons and your understanding of the meaning of life, even from whatever perspective that program of learning has. Okay, Pluto is going through that ninth house, and it will be there from a couple of years ago until 2044. So that is during that time, there's that 20 years or so, there's added intensity and focus on any of those topics, travel or higher learning or spiritual belief systems. Okay, so there's added focus and intensity and development, and perhaps some form of great wealth there, like great wealth of spirituality or great wealth of learning. Perhaps you decide to do a degree and then to do a master's degree and then to do a PhD. Such focus and wealth of opportunity. But underneath, there's also learning to do, and difficult learning to do in terms of power. Or when some challenging moments come along involving Pluto, you could realize that you have been giving away your power in some area. For example, you might be following a guru or a set of teachings and you realize, hey, hang on, there's some misuse and abuse of power in this. And there's a big crisis that makes you realize, oh my gosh, that was abusive and I need to get out of this situation. And it might leave you feeling empty because there's all these spiritual beliefs that you were following, and you had such trust in this and the meaning of life. It could mean that you realize, oh, I don't trust that meaning of life now. And what do I believe in? What is left? I had a friend who left her religion. Actually, I think many, of course, many people have this story of leaving a religion that they were brought up with, and then what's left after you take away those rules of the religion, many of which might have a lot of value. You don't know maybe what to trust. What is your actual values? What are the ethics that you want to lead your life by, or the spiritual principles? Okay, it also could be something to do with higher learning. Perhaps you realize by the end of the 20 years you've been over focusing, you want to pull back from that. Perhaps you felt driven or obsessed about traveling and all your funds and resources going into your next travel adventure or your outdoor adventure, and then you slowly realize, oh, that's actually not for me. It's not really giving me the meaning in life that I thought it was, and you pull back from that. But I think most of that will come later. What could be happening now in these early stages of Pluto going through your ninth house, Gemini, is more like where some kind of, when does a Pluto transit or Pluto's triggered by other planets, some kind of crisis might come along that makes you question power and power dynamics around you, especially anything to do with other cultures or travel opportunities. Higher learning, perhaps you're arguing with your supervisor or arguing with your lecturer, or letting another student, take advantage of you, for example. And also, what was the other one I said? Oh, travel and religion, of course, or religion or spiritual beliefs. Okay. You will be growing in your own power through any crisis that happens, but it's not always easy. And while Pluto is retrograde over the next 5 months, this is where that exploration of power and power dynamics and your questioning of power will go into an internal process. It will be quietly bubbling away. And then after Pluto goes direct, you might apply some of that learning. It's subtle, but it is powerful and it is transformative. So all the best for that, Gemini, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Cancer, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Cancer Rising, between the 6th and 7th of May, the end of this week, and mid-October, Pluto will be in retrograde in your 8th house. Okay, so Pluto moved into your 8th house a couple of years ago, and it will be there until 2024. During that time, there could be quite a lot of extra focus on your partner's resources or on any kind of shared resources or money, thinking about inheritances, thinking about insurance payouts or taxes and things like that. That could be quite a focus. The 8th house can also be a house where we are looking at occult topics and going into the underlying layers of things, looking at the esoteric nature of things. And we could get even a little bit obsessed with any of those topics. The eighth house can also be about intimacy with one's partner, like deep, deep understanding of each other and ideally acceptance of each other and all the shadow side of one's partner. But on the journey to that, we could go through some experiences, whether we are the perpetrator or the victim, and it's all power dynamics in terms of power dynamics in the intimate parts of relationship. Okay, Cancer, you have just come out of, like in the last couple of years, you've come out of 14 years or 15 years or so of Pluto going through your seventh house of partnership, and incredible and painful transformations and endings, and also intense focus at times on partners. And this is following that. This is more about the resources that you share with a partner. This could be about divorce settlements, where you go through the transformation of the divorce and the dividing up the resources. It could be even like Pluto can bring great wealth. It could be some kind of win, like an insurance payout or a tax payout, even a lottery win, though this isn't exactly the house of lottery winning, but there could be some wealth that comes along from other sources like inheritance. And great wealth can come from Pluto going through this house, but also great destruction and loss. Okay, so at some stage in that 20 years of Pluto going through here, there could be a big crisis that happens that really gets you down deep, and you learn about the power dynamics going on. Perhaps there's a betrayal of some nature. And whatever it is, you learn more about yourself and your own inner power, and looking into those deep psychological layers will help. Be careful with the eighth house Pluto, not to get overly connected with dark realms or powerful unseen entities. I don't know much about that world, but I think there could be a danger of that with Pluto in the eighth house. However, having said all of that, while Pluto is retrograde over the next 5 months, there is an internal shift. There's a shift to working through and understanding the power dynamics that go on in relationship, the power dynamics that go on with relationship resources, power dynamics that go on with inheritances, insurance, taxes, and one's own psychological layers. All of that, moving to an internal process. So things will be bubbling away and developing. You'll be integrating the understanding of the last 7 months or so. And then when you come out of it at the end of in mid-October, and then a few months that follow, you'll be able to apply some of that learning in the world. So all of the best for that, Cancer, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Leo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Leo Rising, from the 6th or 7th of May, the end of this week until mid-October, Pluto will be retrograde in your 7th house. So Pluto moved into your 7th house a couple of years ago, and it's going to be there until 2044. Leo, this is a huge time of transformation in relationship. Okay, so relationships can include one's other half, like your committed, intimate partner, but relationships can also be business partners, anyone that you work with or spend time with, do things with on a one-to-one basis, where you're sitting across the table from each other, metaphorically or actually. So this can be client or client-therapist relationships, or anything where you're working with clients on a one-to-one basis. Huge changes. There's going to be extra focus on relationship until 2044, so that there might be more to do with relationships in your life, and just that added focus on relationships. But that is also slowly crumbling, so that by the end of that, like coming up to 2044, you might realize you kind of don't care as much, or you don't want to put into relationship quite as much as you were putting in. That doesn't mean that your relationship is going to end. though it might. It just might mean that there's less focus or obsessiveness with it. It also could mean, because Pluto can bring great wealth, you might have great wealth with relationship, like relationships coming along, that many clients or many potential partners, or very great luck with your partner, and perhaps even a wealthy partner. However, Pluto can also bring crisis and times of destruction. Okay, and so perhaps there will be an end to relationships, some kind of relationship, whether it's a business partner or whatever it is. There could possibly be betrayal as well, I'm sorry to say, Leo. Whatever it is, this kind of crisis, while you can feel like very like wrung out and very much like you've had a huge injury, a very raw wound to you because of that, whatever the crisis is, like some structure that you relied on that goes, that dissolves, that crumbles. And you go through the pain of that and the letting go of it, and out of that you gain a stronger sense of your own power and autonomy, and recognize that you don't need whatever that was that went. I have Pluto in my seventh house in my natal chart, and it means that all my intimate partner relationships have indeed been transformative, and some more than others. And I've gone through some really deep, dark crises, not necessarily because anything went terribly wrong or was terribly betraying, but it was more about how I responded and felt about it, where I really felt like my power was just crumbling away with the loss of the relationship. This was when I was much younger, with one of these particular crises, and I really needed to do some work, and I went to counseling, and that helped me to get through and recognize that that kind of ending can happen. And at the end, I was still okay. I just felt like I'd been spat out from something awful, but it was actually okay. And this is the kind of thing, everyone goes through relationship breakups. Everyone goes through endings, but they don't all hit us quite so hard. And so, if there is something happening with relationship where it's an ending, it might hit you harder over the next 20 years until 2044 than it might have done, say, while Pluto was in another sign, Leo. And out of it, you will learn more about your own personal autonomy and the ability to take charge of your life and lead your life even when you're in relationship. Leo, you are such a leader, actually. You are a great, shiny, wonderful, regal leader in our worlds. So we don't need to see you giving your power away unnecessarily. That's not you, Leo. You are the king or the queen of any situation, as long as you know you're fair to people and everything. Anyway, I digress. Over the next 5 months, while Pluto is retrograde, your exploration of power in relationship is moving to a more internal process. Okay, so things will be bubbling away inside and developing inside you. And at the end of that, you might have a more clear idea about how you can act with more power in your relationships and fairness. Okay, so I do need to mention Pluto can be associated with, being over controlling, and also with victimhoods, and also, like trying to control, and then the whole perpetrator and victim thing. So, codependency. Avoid getting into codependent situations. Avoid using power in manipulative ways, whether from the victim point of view or the perpetrator point of view. We can be just as controlling when we're acting like we're weak. Okay? So try to be honest and straightforward and direct in relationship, and avoid power plays. Okay. All the best for that, Leo, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Virgo, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Virgo Rising, Pluto went into your sixth house 2 years ago, and it's going to be there until 2044. And then at the end of this week, until mid-October, it's going to be retrograde in your sixth house. The sixth house, Virgo, is a house that suits you very well. It's a house of being organized and analytical and discerning. It's a house of your daily routines, your life admin, keeping things in order and clean and pure. And also, it's about your daily work and how you give service in the world in practical ways. That is so important, Virgo. It's so spiritual. The work that you do on a daily basis should be aligned with your goals, and it should be aligned with your sense of what is right in the world and ethical. Okay. Anyway, Virgo, you're all about that. And Pluto is going through that sixth house of work and service and daily organization and routines. And I should mention also the sixth house with the daily routines. It's also about our health routines, what we're eating in a healthy way, and exercise and all of that. All right. So extra focus on any and all of those areas between now and 2044 for you, Virgo. Extra focus on your daily work and how you give service and your productivity. Extra focus on your routines. Like, if your routines aren't working for how you organize your home, that's going to show up and be a problem, and you'll need to look at it and take the power back in that area. Pluto, there might also be wonderful opportunities to be, because Pluto can be great wealth, and there might be a wealth of opportunity to do really well in your daily work and to be recognized for what you're doing in your daily work. At the same time, there will be power dynamics to deal with and power struggles. This could be in the home. It might be you struggling with yourself about taking charge of keeping your home in order. Or it might be in the workplace where there are power dynamics between colleagues or bosses, and maybe problems with authority or authoritarian figures. Pluto can bring about crisis and transformation through crisis. An example of this could be somebody at work that's trying to undermine you. I've got a friend who this happened to, where their boss basically undermined them because I think they felt my friend was speaking up too much and being too opinionated and not acting small enough. And it led to like a really sort of, like, my friend really questioning who he was, and his contribution to the workplace and contribution to the world through work, and ending up changing career, in fact, because of it. This is the kind of thing that could happen, Virgo, during the time. Okay, so some kind of crisis that's transformative, that gets you down deep, and it can feel like it's really touching on very raw nerves, and make you look at who you are underneath and what is the underlying power, and how you can be powerful even if the situation is very controlled and limited and there's almost no way that you can act, okay, to find the way through that. All right. Over the next 5 months, Pluto is going retrograde. So some of all that stuff that's happening might not be showing so much in the external world. You will be exploring things in an internal way. You might not be speaking up quite so much, or making so many changes to take the power back, but things are going on underneath. And by the end of that 5 months, and going into November and December, you might be able to apply some of that new learning about your power in the workplace, in your daily routines for health and for organization. So all the best for that, Virgo, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Libra, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Libra Rising, from the end of this week, 6th or 7th of May, until mid-October, Pluto is going to be retrograde, and you have got Pluto going through your 5th house, Libra. So it went into your 5th house in 2023-24, and it's going to be there until 2044. The 5th house is about children, your children. It's about lovers. It's about romance or romantic partners. It's also about your creative hobbies or your creative entrepreneurial projects, the things that you produce from the heart because you love doing them. It's a house of play and fun and pleasure in terms of creating what comes from you and how you shine in the world. Okay, and that with the playful fun that brings in the children, and also they're your creation for the world, and it also brings in playful lovely romance and lovemaking even. So Pluto is intensifying these topics for you over the next 20 years. All right, so perhaps bringing great wealth in any of these, like opportunities to enjoy your hobbies and to follow them, and perhaps even make them into an entrepreneurial project that you give to the world. It also could be bringing in many opportunities for dating partners, and it could also be really developing things for your kids and bringing kids into your life as well. Of course, 20 years is a long time. It's about as long as one's childbearing time anyway. Okay, so added opportunities and intensification of these topics over the next 20 years, and at the same time bringing out power dynamics that could be going on with any of them. Are you needing to take charge of things with your children, to lead them like a parent and stop letting them wrap you around their little fingers and be the boss of you? You take charge of them instead. Anyway, I say that in a light and joking way, but there can be real pain and real angst with the power dynamics between children and their parents, and the natural authority should be the parent, of course. Are you taking that role? And also, this can come up with power dynamics in relationship, like in the dating world. Think about, it's a good idea through these 20 years to be thinking about the wording of your messages on the online chat groups, or how you present yourself to your dating partner. Are you keeping your power? Are there power dynamics going on? Is there some kind of codependency playing out, some victim perpetrator? Are you taking enough charge? All right. Occasionally, from time to time during this transit, there's going to be some kind of crisis that is transformative, that is very difficult and painful, and hits raw nerves within you. Okay. And out of that, you will learn more about your own power and your own ability to wield power and take charge in these areas. Okay. While Pluto is retrograde over the next 5 months, all of this will be moving to a more internal process. So things might happen, yes, but your response to them and your ways of exploring power might be more on the inside, and you're not really noticing things changing so much. They will be changing. It could be like taking in whatever's been going on in any of those areas over the last 5 months, actually 7 months since Pluto has been direct, and whatever's been going on in any of those areas that I mentioned, and integrating all of that, like assimilating it and understanding what's gone on. And then at the end of the time of the retrograde, you might be able to move forward and maybe make some changes with clarity as you go forward in life with your romance, your children, and creative projects and hobbies. So, oh yeah, just mention also with Pluto in that house, you could get, or actually, I'm a Libra sun, so this can be me as well. We can get even more obsessive with our hobbies as well and our creative projects. Sounds a little familiar to me, actually. I can get really carried away with astrology and music as well. Anyway, so all the best for that, Libra, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Scorpio, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Scorpio Rising, Pluto is moving through your fourth house of your home, your family, your ancestry. It will be there it was there from 2023, 2024, and it will be there until 2044. So it's 20 years of that, Scorpio, with transformation in your home and your ancestry, your family of origin, people that you live with, properties that you own. Okay, from the 6th or 7th of May until mid-October this year, Pluto will be retrograde. So it's stationing retrograde at the moment. So intensifying some topics to do with those that I mentioned. Okay. So over that 20 years, Scorpio, there are going to be transformations to your home and your place of living, and perhaps amazing golden opportunities that come along that you take up, and a lot of intense focus on home and family. So perhaps you reconnect over that time with your family of origin, or you have far more to do with your family of origin. Perhaps during that time you buy properties, or perhaps you renovate a property. Of course, 20 years is a long time, so any of all of that, or any or all of these could happen within this time. All right. So there could be great opportunity because Pluto brings wealth, and it could be that you have a wealthier home, like more opportunity to make wealth from homes, from buying and selling perhaps. This could also be about more intense focus on your home that you're living in now and who you're living with, which could be come in the form of renovating or maybe working from home, and so you're thinking about the home much more and the home comforts and how you want to set up that structure. Okay. And of course, the challenging side of Pluto is that it does bring crises that can lead to transformation. Okay, so there could be some kind of crisis to do with your family, some kind of crisis to do with your mother, your grandparents, your ancestors, some kind of crisis to do with your home, like, I don't know, even a natural disaster or something that could affect your home. All right. And through this, the structures that you thought was solid foundations, can be ripped away, can be crumbling and destroyed. And then out of that, there's a very painful process to go through, but out of that, you realize that your home is where your heart is, really. Like, you realize you are enough without a home, and you can start a home again. You can do that. It's okay. And it won't be easy, though. And you will be wiser and slightly hardened up from this. Okay, Scorpio, I think that you're probably the most comfortable sign with all of this because Pluto is your modern ruler, and you understand the deep plutonic nature of power in all of our lives, the deep forces that are hidden but very strong. And you can work with that quite confidently because that is in your nature. You have this deep well of intensity, so Pluto suits you really well. So I think you'll be good with it, Scorpio. Over the next 5 months while Pluto is in retrograde, your exploration of power within the home, or power dynamics to do with the home, will move to an internal process. Okay, so things will be bubbling underneath. You'll be trying to understand, but it might not be conscious, it might be unconscious, trying to understand what are the power dynamics going on here. Like with the property prices, why are they priced that way? Why are the interest rates priced in such a way? What does that mean for me? How can I make the best use? How can I alchemize this situation to make gold? And then with power dynamics, of course, this can definitely be about power struggles within the family, power struggles within any of your ancestors, power struggles in the home. Okay, so Scorpio, you've got a lot of inner power, you've got a lot of magnetism and strategic ability. Use that for good and keep your own power and feel confident in yourself, and also allow others to stay in their own power. Okay, so all the best for that, Scorpio, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Sagittarius Rising, Pluto is going to go retrograde at the end of this week on the 6th or 7th of May, and it will be retrograde until the middle of October, and that is going to be in your third house, Sagittarius. This is a house of your local community and your neighbours. It's a house of going around like a little buzzy bee and connecting with your neighbours, going short distances around your neighborhood and learning. So this can be the house of schools and doing courses and going to community meetings and things like that, all to do with that. Sagittarius, you kind of love the distant horizons and going off on distant foreign travel adventures, but the third house is intensified between now and 2044 because Pluto is bringing greater opportunity, greater focus into this area of your neighborhood and your learning. The third house can be also to do with trade and exchange and small businesses and siblings and relations like cousins and aunties and uncles and nephews and nieces. So all of these topics could come up between now and 2044 as having extra focus, extra opportunity, and the challenge that could come along. Okay, so just going back to the extra focus and the extra opportunity, because Pluto can bring great wealth, and you might find that there's great wealth coming from your neighborhood in some way, or great wealth coming from your learning in some way, okay, or from your small business. So that's wonderful. You'll have the ability to alchemize things. That's the Pluto. It can make something into gold. But at the same time, challenges. The first challenge will be power struggles and power dynamics being played out. So make sure to work on those when they come up, to name things that are coming up, to name the feelings that are coming up within yourself, and try and understand what's going on underneath for yourself and in terms of the motivations that are driving others with their sort of power plays that they're doing. So this could be neighbors, or it could be your relations or your brothers or sisters where the power dynamics are coming up. All right. And take care that you're using power appropriately as well, Sagittarius, like standing in your own power, but also respecting the autonomy of others. Okay. The other challenge with Pluto is that it can bring crises along, like a transformative event or events that slowly but surely destroy or crumble. And it could be quick sometimes, but mostly it's very profound. It's slow but very profound endings or crumbling, like the tower in the tarot card, the tower cards of the tarot, crumbling down, destroyed. Okay, so perhaps you find that there are really big changes to your neighborhood. Perhaps a school closes in your neighborhood and it has a big effect on you, or a course that's been running, or a hobby or a community group you've been connecting with, and that ends and it leaves quite a hole for you, Sagittarius. And it actually makes you question something about your own inner worth and power, and you need to go through the pain of that and then come out the other side, of course, recognizing, okay, I am still me without that thing. I'm still enough, and I am still a powerful person despite not having the structure that I thought was holding me up. While Pluto is retrograde over the next 5 months, any explorations and understandings of power in your neighborhoods, in your community, with your relations and siblings, or in your small business, or in your learning, hand skills are also in the third house. Any of these could move to an internal process. So you're sort of integrating what you've learned over the last 7 months, trying to organize that within yourself. All of this will be happening on a subconscious level, so it's not very noticeable. But then by the end of the retrograde period, so late October, November, moving on, you can be applying some of that learning in your real life, in the earthly world. So all the best for that, Sagittarius, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. If you are Capricorn, Sun, Moon, or Rising, but especially Capricorn Rising, well, Capricorn, Pluto has moved out of your sign in the last couple of years, and I'm sure that is a relief. You had you had about 15 years of Pluto moving through your own sign. So I expect that in that time you may have felt like your whole identity was destroyed, and maybe you had to start from scratch again about who am I, what am I in this world. And this could have been through your career, it could have been through relationships, could have been through children, your home, anything. Capricorn, you got up and you carried on, and well done. You have survived Pluto going through your first house. And now, since 2023, 2024, Pluto is going through your second house of your resources, your money, your income, the income that comes from the work that you do, the things that you do, okay, and your values in the world and your resources and possessions, okay. So Pluto is going to be in that house, your second house, until 2044. So it's a long time, 20 years. And during that time, there could be extra intensity and focus and opportunities that come along to develop your wealth. This could even bring great wealth, because Pluto can bring great wealth and the realization of high ambitions, okay, and a lot of focus in this area for that 20 years. At the same, and there could be opportunities that come along, so make the most of those, alchemize those, so turn what is ordinary into gold when you have the chance and when you see the opportunity. Two challenging factors of Pluto in there. One is that power dynamics and power struggles could play out. So you might be having power struggles even within yourself about, what do I value? What do I prioritize? Am I going to value this or that? What should I focus on? Higher income, or putting time running out and going to work and earning more, or putting more time into working a bit less but looking after what I already have better. That's just one example, okay? The second house, on a deeper level than just money and resources, can be about values, what we value, and our sense of self-worth. And this could go through some challenges during this time with power struggles about, who am I? What am I worth? What do I value about myself? How especially your resources reflect the ways that you value yourself. And are you disempowered in that in any way? So Pluto will bring up stuff that makes you question that, and maybe you have some trouble finding an income. Maybe you have some trouble accessing resources, okay? The other thing that Pluto can do that is challenging, it can bring a crisis that destroys what you've got, that destroys what you believe you've got. Of course, everything in life is just comes and it goes, it's always flowing. But Capricorn, you really like to build up your resources slowly and steadily and work at things in a dedicated, hardworking, steady way, step by step. And Pluto could come along and take something that you've worked for a long time away, whether that is a position that you saved up for a long time, or some money in your account, and suddenly this big expense comes up. And any crisis that comes along like that, a crisis that threatens your resources or your sense of self-worth, or both, could be really hard, like, because Pluto transits are painful, and at some stage there'll be some of those that come along to your resources and your money between now and 2024. So 2044, that is. So as those crises come along, you've just got to face them in that stoic way of yours, Capricorn, and you'll do well with that, with your stoicism. But be prepared to go underneath and look at the underlying feelings that are going on. Don't just stay in the material world. Go underneath what is underlying. Okay. And over the next 5 months, Pluto's going retrograde between now and mid-October. And while that happens, this kind of exploration and this learning that we're doing, that you're doing, about your second house of your finances and your resources and your income, that's moving to an internal process. So it'll be down on the inside, subtly working away, where you're integrating whatever you might have learned uh, over the last 7 months while Pluto's been going direct, taking that learning and working on it really at a subconscious level. You might not even be aware that you're working on it. But then when you get to end of October this year, or November or December, and Pluto turns forward again, then you'll be able to apply that learning in the real world and take charge of something to do with your resources and finances and work with that. So all the best with that, Capricorn, and please like, comment, or subscribe if you like this video. So there we go. That is an overview of the week, and then a bit of a deep dive into Pluto and its retrograde, and it's just the nature of Pluto in our lives. I think it's such an interesting planet and such an interesting process, all about the underlying stuff. So all the best for that, all the best with the power struggles and dynamics that are inevitably part of life. And I will be back with another video next week. Bye for now.